Good evening, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. In the lead-up to Budget 2025, New Democrats made it very clear that it needs to address head-on the crises facing Canadian families and invest in the programs that Canadians rely on. We have record unemployment, particularly among young people. We have a housing shortage and a cost of living crisis in communities across the country. Our cherished public health care system needs to be expanded, not cut. We need better childcare. Since the budget was presented almost 2 weeks ago, we have taken the time to listen to our constituents and to meet with stakeholders. It is clear from those conversations that this is a budget that does not address the real needs facing Canadians. It fails to meet the moment, deliver transformational change, or address the urgent needs facing Canadians. While there are elements of the budget which reflect our concerns, on the whole, this is a conservative budget. From reducing healthcare funding to provinces, to making deeper cuts to services than Stephen Harper's budgets did, including to programs that are helping Canada's most marginalized communities, to reversing action on the climate crisis, this budget fails to deliver the policies our country needs. It particularly fails Indigenous people. But through these discussions, it became equally clear that Canadians do not want an election right now. The consequences of defeating this budget would not be to improve it or to help Canadians. It would be to plunge the country into an election only months after the last one, and while we still face an existential threat from the Trump administration. On that basis, we engaged in conversations with the government about improvements that could strengthen the budget and earn our support. At this time, the Liberals have not been willing to make those changes. And so, we have decided to put the interests of our country first, to vote against the budget, but to help prevent an election. Canada is facing instability and overlapping crises. In these challenging times, we must put our country's well-being first above partisan interests. When the next election comes, whenever that may be, Canadians will hold Mark Carney responsible and to account for his record and for the choices that he made in this budget. But today, New Democrats are choosing stability over political games.
It's not just partisan interest, though. I mean, your party's abstentions just allowed for the government to cut thousands of public worker jobs. How do you square that being the party of workers?
Well, this is a Liberal budget, and this is what happens when you vote for Liberals, is these are the kind of neoliberal, neoconservative policies that you get. And we've opposed this budget. That's why we stood up and we're voting against the budget. We can't support it. They did not earn our support. And we tried to make changes to this budget. But at the same time, again, Canadians clearly don't want an election right now, and given the serious economic challenges facing our country right now, we don't think that it would be good for our country. So New Democrats have expressed our opposition to this budget, and we have said that we are not going to force an election right now that clearly Canadians don't want, and our country doesn't need.
Was this about your electoral prospects?
Go ahead.
Was this about your electoral prospects, the fact that the NDP can't afford an election right now?
Not at all. No, I mean, this is not about us. This is about Canadians, and that's why the NDP, we took our time last week to go across the country to talk to Canadians, our constituents, and find out what they said and what they wanted. And it is very clear. There is a strong consensus in this country that Canadians do not want an election basically 6 months after the last one. They also are feeling the precarity and the instability of the moment. We have Donald Trump still menacing our country and serious economic issues. Canadians want us to be in Parliament addressing those serious issues, and so that's why we're taking the position that we're doing.
Why isn't your caucus united? Why isn't your caucus united? Why aren't you showing a united front?
Well, look behind me. Our caucus is entirely united.
You voted differently.
No, we didn't vote differently. We voted no against this budget, and we had a couple of abstentions, which is, of course, that happens in many cases, but nobody voted at cross purposes.
Did you get it from the government? Prop up the government. The abstentions prop up the government.
I think there were abstentions on the Conservative side too. Are they propping up the government? Why don't you go ask Pierre Poilievre?
What did your
your responsibility to avoid an election? Why is it the NDP's responsibility to avoid an election? Isn't that the Liberals' responsibility?
Yes, it is. In fact, it's all parliamentarians' job.
Why abstain? Why allow them the chance to not go to an election by abstain? Why make that choice?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your question.
You're saying it's the Liberals' job, but yet you're helping the Liberals avoid an election by abstaining. Why?
Look, there's 343 people in the House of Commons. I've said from the beginning that it's Mark Carney's responsibility as the Prime Minister of a minority government to craft a budget that can earn majority support. But at the same time, we're in a unique situation right now, 6 months after the last election, where Canadians don't want an election right now. I haven't heard anybody dispute that. There is no strong desire for an election among the Canadian people. And we believe that it's important to tap into what Canadians want. And second, what's very important is the economic precarity that we're facing right now. You know, we have serious economic issues. Mr. Trump is changing his mind every day, and it's not the right time for our country to plunge into an election.
Parce que tout à l'heure, j'ai laissé Madame parler en anglais.
Monsieur Boulerice
D'accord, merci, Monsieur
parler
Boulerice. Merci, Monsieur Boulerice.
Did you have
On a besoin d'un petit peu de français, s'il vous plaît.
Oui,
si je peux.
peut-être.
Oui. Je sais que je suis seul, là, mais il y a des millions de Canadiens qui nous écoutent en
Monsieur
français.
Boulerice parler. C'est bien. Oui.
Monsieur Boulerice, vous semblez avoir mis de côté certains principes pour éviter une élection. Vous êtes prêt à faire ça pendant combien de temps?
Vous savez, c'est un budget qui est extrêmement décevant. Puis on l'a dit, nous, au NPD, que c'est un budget qui était principalement conservateur, qui est très dommageable pour l'environnement, entre autres. Et c'est un peu bizarre d'avoir d'ailleurs Mme May voter en faveur de ce budget-là d'un point de vue des changements climatiques. Mais nous, ce qu'on a dit toujours, c'est on veut être à l'écoute de la population. On a pris toute la semaine dernière pour aller voir les gens dans nos communautés. Le message des gens était clair. On n'aime pas ce budget-là, mais ça serait irresponsable d'aller en élection. Donc, on a assumé nos responsabilités de parlementaires en votant contre le budget, personne n'a voté pour, mais en étant aussi responsable puis en disant les Québécois et les Canadiens ne veulent pas d'élection. Alors là, ça nous donne quelques mois devant nous et on va voir c'est quoi les prochaines étapes. C'est un gouvernement minoritaire. Combien de temps il va durer? J'en ai aucune idée. Au printemps,
vous êtes prêt à ce moment-là, au printemps, à voter contre un autre vote de confiance?
Évidemment, on peut être prêt ce printemps à voter contre un gouvernement libéral qui agit comme des conservateurs, qui coupe dans les services publics, qui ne répond pas aux besoins de la situation, surtout le chômage chez les jeunes puis le logement. On va toujours être prêt à le faire. Aujourd'hui, on a voté contre le budget, la grande majorité du caucus, mais on a été aussi responsables puis à l'écoute des gens qui nous disaient on est contre le budget, mais s'il vous plaît, faites pas d'élection. On a répondu à ça.
Avez-vous obtenu quelque chose pour votre abstention au NPD?
Vous savez, on a eu des discussions. On a poussé les libéraux à obtenir des résultats concrets. Il y avait une immobilité totale de leur part. Alors, dans ce contexte-là, ça nous a poussé à voter non, mais à être responsables pour qu'il n'y ait pas d'élection parce que personne n'en voulait.
Does this mean you're not going to vote against this government until there's a new leader? Like, are you giving them free pass for like the next 4 or 5 months?
No, absolutely not. No, this is our vote for today. And, you know, tonight the government dropped a 600-page Ways and Means motion that will be voted on tomorrow. And then, of course, there's the Budget Implementation Act, or maybe several of them. We haven't had a chance to review them. So this is our position for tonight, and we're going to be evaluating each measure that comes as it comes.
Mr. Davies, what concessions did you get for these abstentions?
We didn't get any concessions.
You're hoping you didn't get anything in return?
We're not propping anybody up. We voted no against the budget. We voted no.
Do you feel like you have any leverage now to push for amendments to this budget, to slow down the process of the implementation and therefore the cuts to the public service? I mean, what leverage do you have left now that you've abstained from this vote?
Well, I've said from the beginning that in a minority parliament where there are 3 opposition parties that hold a balance of power, all of us at one point or another have some leverage. We're going to continue to have conversations with the Liberals. I mean, we were engaged in discussions with them over the past few weeks. We did put forth a number of positive proposals that would have gathered. Well, we're not going to bargain in public at this point, but they were concrete proposals that reflected the needs of working families and people across this country, and the Liberals were not ready to say yes to them. So we're going to continue pushing for policies to help working people that elected us to this Parliament, and we'll continue using that leverage in the days and weeks ahead.
But you didn't get anything. You didn't get anything out of this last deal. By you abstaining, you knew that they would, the budget would pass, and you didn't get anything out of
The
it.
Democrats voted no to this budget.
Yes, but
You say that you voted for the interest of the country, that this is your position for the interest of the country. But how could you go into an election? You don't even have a leader.
Well, I am the leader right now. We don't have a permanent leader. That's
How could
true.
you hit the trail with all
Look,
the problems
look,
and the situation with the NDP?
You know, I don't think any political party in the House of Commons wants an election right now. I haven't heard anybody say they want an election. Because, you know, we all understand we just had an election in April. This is the first budget of this new government. And so, you know, I think our first obligation here is to do what Jack Layton always taught us, which is people want Parliament to work. And so we're doing what New Democrats always do. We're coming to Parliament with positive, constructive ideas and trying to make it work. This is not about us. This is about Canadians. And the vast, vast, vast majority of Canadians want us to try to make this Parliament work. They do not want an election, and frankly, we don't think our country needs one at this point. So we're putting our country ahead of partisan interests, and I think that most parliamentarians, if not all, should do that.
What is your specific reason why?
When did you decide that two of you will abstain? Would you still have abstained if enough Conservatives had abstained, or would you all have voted no in that
Look,
scenario?
we caucus regularly. We have a tight, united caucus, and we made our own decisions on this. We decided what we were going to do, and it was up to the other parties. I mean, we have 7 votes out of 343. I mean, every other party in that House of Commons had a greater chance of influencing the outcome than we did.
Why Lori and
So-
why Gord? Why did you,
You
two
said that the-
specifically? Why was it specifically you two?
Mr. Johns, can you explain why?
or Lori as well.
Sure.
You might have to
Lori
vote.
as well?
First, as we, did you want to go ahead, Lori? Okay. Well, first of all, we made it clear last week, well, the week before last when the House was sitting, that we were going to go back to our ridings and listen to our constituents. I talked to every single mayor, 9 mayors in my riding, 3 regional district chairs, 17 elected chief councillors. All of them were unanimous and they didn't want the government to fall. So I did consultation. Unlike the Conservative MP on Vancouver Island who was on CBC radio just on Friday night saying that we shouldn't have an election, that nobody wanted an election, that he heard from his constituents all week. They didn't want an election, that there should be an election next fall. What did he do? He voted for an election. So I'm sorry, we're being the adult in the room listening to our constituents who said right now is not the time to have an election. In the face of Donald Trump, that we need to stand united. We're going to fight. We're going to fight tomorrow for the things that we put on the table that we're not going to bargain in public about, and we're going to fight until we get more for Canadians. That is what Canadians expect of us, and that's what we're going to do.
What is your message to voters
Just very quickly, having lived in the 44th Parliament of always being accused that we're propping up the government, I couldn't live with that. Not with this budget. This budget doesn't do enough for Indigenous peoples, and I could not do that. So that's why I abstained, because we're not propping up the government.
Was offered by the government in the budget? Wasn't there something in the budget for your riding?
There were things for my writing, and that's why I had to abstain.
Could I have that ineptitude? I know that CBC North will want that quote in ineptitude.
What was the question?
Just could I have you say that in ineptitude, just so your constituents actually can get it too?
Tana negwang nek pimageruk sakyak titiyo madlakik punga nararaw kama takwa takutitiyo marok punga libro kun ikayok tuingin nama takutitiya kamarik punga takwa libro kut imanelyong nek titlugi ujiksuk titikan nere kapugo ukyok taktong miyonit ikpigusuk kama uvan negwarok tuni ikpigusuk kama.
What is your message to voters? What is your message to voters? When did you decide your vote was no? When did you decide that?
We caucused as late as today. So we made our final decision this morning.
Knowing how you were going to vote?
Of course we did. Yes.
What is your message to voters who already saw your party as close to the Liberals
Last
in the
question,
supply
I think,
and
if
confidence
people-
agreement?
I'm sorry.
What is your message to voters who already saw the NDP as an extension of the Liberals through the supply and confidence agreement? Now you're, once again, it could be seen as helping the Liberals with the budget passing.
Well, voting no to a Liberal budget couldn't be a clearer message that we're not propping up the Liberal government. We voted no tonight. It's a bad budget. It's not a budget that we think that, well, count the votes. I stood in my place and voted no. And we voted no as a party, and it's up to other parties to determine what they do. It was up to any other party to defeat this government if they wanted to, including the Conservatives, including the Bloc, right? And yes, including Elizabeth May. So in a minority parliament, every vote counts. The NDP voted no to this budget tonight. We're going to continue to work for a better budget for people, and we're going to continue to do what Canadians want us to do, which is work and solve the problems that are facing them. Thanks very much, everybody.